Hello, my friends. Ted Simpson here. I am going to do a fine little painting for y'all today. This one here is based on a request from my commenters. One commenter in particular who wanted a winter scene for my next video, and who am I to deny a request? So, I always like showing you, when I can, the application of the base coat. Bob would show this occasionally. I want to say, you know, that season 1, that 13th episode where he answered some reader and watcher requests, letters that were sent in. Remember letters? Letters that were sent in asking them some specifics about the technique. And so I think, or maybe on one of the instructional DVDs, or VHS back in the day, he talked about that liquid white. And of course I talk about it a lot, because that's one of the biggest questions, the most requested answer, is how much liquid white? How do we put the liquid white on? Tell me about that liquid white. And all that liquid white. I'm saying liquid white a lot. So, a very thin coat. This stuff spreads really well, and you can, grind it into the weave of the fabric, or brush it in, and then smoothing strokes, just so that we get a nice, even coat. If you lightly tap with your finger, and you can see the grooves of your finger through the paint, you've got the right amount. We don't need a lot. The more you have, it can start to affect the blending. It'll blend a lot faster. When you try to put clouds on a soupy sky, they'll blend a little bit different, a little easier. But when you're beginning, you don't really have that light touch as more experienced painters do. So the less liquid white you have, the better those first few paintings are going to be. I pretty much guarantee that. All right, we are going simple. Titanium white, midnight black, white, black, and all the colors in between. So, a little bit of residue left in my brush. I didn't even bother to clean it, just wiped off the excess liquid white. Let me get my paper towels up close where I can get it. And if you want to beat the devil out of it on the side of your easel, Bob won't mind. So, I'm pulling down very small amounts of black and then tapping it in. Now, look what happens when I tap. It might lighten up a little bit just based on that very, very little bit of the liquid white. That's what I want, very light. Less paint the better. Little circles. Little dancing strokes here. I am barely touching the canvas. And I'm not even thinking. I'm not even looking. I know you don't, camera is not on me, but I am barely even looking at the canvas. I just want to throw a little bit out there. Wipe the excess off my brush. And then simple crisscross strokes. And let's just take out some of those harsh rake marks, the little brush marks. Now I'm looking for it to be open. Lots of these little open spaces. Little light areas and dark areas. This is the background of the background, believe it or not. Just want a soft start here. There it is. Now, I'm moving in. I'm going to grab just a little bit more of the black. And you're going to be fiddling with it a little bit. I don't want this pure black. I don't want it super duper strong. Quite yet. So, I'm using the corner of the brush. Sometimes I hold it upwards like this. Sometimes I'm holding the brush a little bit over to the side and down. Just want a little bit of color coming off. I don't want to necessarily use the whole brush. And I'm making some shadowy, dark, stormy things happening here. Okay, I put some on and then I'm blending away from that leading edge. You know how Bob talks about blending the bottom of the cloud into the sky. That's what we're doing here. See that? Now, it doesn't really matter where you put these. It's all going to drastically change. I say that so often in my classes. Don't worry about it. It's all going to change. Okay? I put a little color up there in a basic little shape, and then I blend away from that leading edge. This is just some interest happening here. All sorts of random shapes, swirling the color on, wiping the excess off your brush, and then blending, even crisscross it. If there's any little flyaways, any little brush marks, you can soften this to whatever degree of paleness you like. Super, super simple. Random. If you get a little more color on the brush, some of these will look a little extra stormy. But you'll notice, hopefully, look at the randomness of the shades. There's light ones, there's bolder ones, there's in-between ones. The whole idea is random. The whole idea is random. Maybe there's a big old front coming in right here. It gets a little more color on it. Sometimes we do the little commas, and you can get a particular shape there. And yes, in answer to that unasked question, you can fiddle it. You can go over it as many times as you like. You can darken it. You can lighten it. Now that I haven't cleaned my brush yet. No need to clean your brush with the paint thinner here. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to tap in. Look at that. See how I'm springing those bristles? Beep, 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 beep. Getting some paint up there. A little more paint on the brush. And now, let's add some white clouds. The trick is with this is get the color off. Leave it alone for now. We'll come back, I promise. We'll come back and blend. Just giving it a little stir to get the color out there in our shape. Maybe another little, a little rounded pull. Then, once again, wipe the excess paint off and blur the bottom away. Very lightly, we're talking, 2 hairs and some air. We fluff either from the bottom up or a little sideways, a little crisscross, whatever works to get a little color out there. And the hardest step of all, moving on. A little more color on the brush. Trying to pick out, ooh, look at that, we got a little thing going there. A little bigger cloud form here. Stir, stir, stir. Pull away. Wipe the brush. Blend and soften. Very, very simple. Very, very quick. Maybe there's something right there. A little more paint in my brush makes it stand out against that light gray there. See, it didn't really work when I didn't clean my brush first. Kind of sticks more paint where you might not want it. I did that on purpose, just to show you. Clean your brush. And there we go. We've got an interesting thing going here, and of course, you can do as many or as few of these forms as you like. And one thing I always liked how Bob said it, we're working lights against darks, darks against lights. All these different clouds are standing out because we leave these little patches of the darker color right in between them. Let's stir this one out a little bit. Fluff, flitty, fluff. Little finishing, sideways. I say we've got ourselves a nice little sky. All right. So, our mountain is made up of dark, highlight, and shadow. So how dark is your dark? If we want this mountain to look a little further away, I'm adding just a little bit of white into my midnight black. It's a very dark gray, but it's not black. And this should be more than enough to make our little mountain here. I pull it out nice and flat. Look at that. One little lump of paint can stretch out really, really far. Look at that. That's a lot. Pull it out nice and flat. I touch, I scrape, and I get that roll of paint. Let's go up, right, say about here. I don't know, we want to see some of these great clouds we put in, so not going to try to cover them all up. I push some color in. I can slide my knife or just make it little, like one little step at a time. Either way, what we're looking for is that clean border. Okay, clean border. I'm going to add a little bit of a peak right there. And what we're doing is we're removing the excess just by scraping it away. You can hear it. Scraping, push some on, but scrape it off. Once you get that outer edge, and maybe a little bump right there. Let's change it up a little bit. Just putting a little thing out there. And let's see what that can do. I'm going to double check myself. Wipe my knife, get up there right up to the edge and just nick off the excess. Maybe make that a little stronger. There it is. Now, I'm going to see about getting through this without cleaning the brush at all. Let's see if we can do it. Wipe off all that extra paint. And we're just going to use the existing color to build out the full shape of our mountain. Just trying to move excess paint. See how I pick some up on my brush as I'm going here, and it will fill in and, of course, make it look lighter at the bottom, leaving the top a little darker, bolder. I liked how Bob said, we're not married to this. We're not committed at any point here. It just helps you see the 3D shape by moving some of it to the right and the rest of it to the left. Each peak needs a little bit of a highlight and a little bit of shadow. So you can kind of play around with it. And sometimes we just leave the mountains like that. Those background mountains don't even get any highlights. Just take care not to go off into the sky at this point, like I did right there. But you just make the mountain a little taller, and it incorporates that little bit. Alright, so let's go ahead. I'm going to get some titanium white. And I just want it a little off-white. I don't want it pure white for the highlights. Just a little off-white. Pull it out nice and flat. Wipe your knife. And we're ready to go. Get a little roll there. Ooh, got a little hair on there too. No pressure. I could almost do this with a small knife. It might work a little better. But this light, oh so gentle touch. Just want that paint to barely graze itself off. No pressure. Sometimes I back up on my knife handle there so I can get that really floaty look. Some people, when they get all up here and they're getting super precise, you kind of lose that random look to it. So be free. Let that knife just skim the canvas. Something like that. Sometimes I gotta pick up my color and stretch it back out again to get a nice clean roll. Sometimes I use the small edge of my knife just to do small amounts of highlight. Get something out there. Now, we could spend all our time just playing with all the highlights. Sometimes we alternate, so maybe we'll alternate a little bit. I think though, just a little more. Just a little more. I'm trying not to spread what I already put up there. Put more, that's fine. Try not to do too much less. So, or too much spreading. So let's take some of that dark color here, and we're going to lighten it up a little. We have to have our shadow somewhere between our light and dark. Okay? And when you're working with just two colors, it definitely gives you some practice in color mixing. Bob would often put just a little tinge of blue to show the shadow. But today I'm going to see if I can't just do it with the two colors. Okay, let's see, maybe just a little lighter. I know it's going to seem a little weird at first, and it may look a little too similar to the highlight color. One way to eliminate that similarity, a little bit of that pure titanium white. Aha, I just jumped back on you, didn't I? Let's add a little highlight to the highlight. Just dropping in a little bit of the bright white right on top of the off-white. That really makes it stand out. Look at that. Now for the shadow, I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the small knife. It's just going to help me squeeze it into those harder to reach areas here. Okay. It's a little hard to see, so I added a touch of white to it. Don't have highlight going to the right, have the shadow going to the left. There we go. When I'm doing this here, sometimes you see some spots that need extra highlight. Right there, I kind of missed that little bit when I put the shadow in, so we'll just drift a little highlight right there. Then a little highlight to the highlight. Clean it up with a little bit of the shadow motion. This knob is in my way down here. I might have to change that. Future classes, future paintings. This is a little dark. I'm going to lighten it up. There we go. And let's give it a little extra highlight, those little final highlights, the brighter lights on the right side of that little peak. And of course, we can't forget this little gap right there, or any of these other little spots that might need a little indication. Now, if I were to take a little bit more black, make it darker, darker, darker still, you can pick out some of these spots here. Extra shadow, extra deep shadow, and little spots here and there, just to give this a little extra shade here and there. Gives it a little more interest. A little more interest. I think we got ourselves a little mountain. And you all know, little light little taps, following the basic angle, sweeping from the bottom up, give us our little bit of mist. Even a little bit of tapping like this picks up some of that liquid white that's on there from the start of the video here. Too much fiddling around will really lighten everything up. Now, one of my favorite bits is this little crisscross stroke blending out the very bottom of the mountain. And it just, oh my gosh, gives us that floating look. That mountain is just kind of floating out there. Don't matter what we're going to be putting in front of it. I just really love this little misty effect. Just like that. So, I'm going to just use my brush for this, a little bit of the black into my mix. I want it a little darker than the base of the mountain. Play around, find the color. Let's jump ahead. Let's put a little foothill here. Is that going to be dark enough? Maybe, maybe not. If not, season the color to taste. Working a basic shape here. Ooh, it's growing. And then once I have a distinct outline, I'm just going to bring the rest down. Something like that. You know, it might be a good time here to have a little indication of water. Oh, so gentle. Just pushing back and forth. Now, you might occasionally see a little bit of a dry spot there. You can tell where the liquid white wasn't fully worked in. It happens. It happens. Just got to go over it, push a little harder, push that color into the fabric there, and once you get it into all the little nooks and crannies, normally like the liquid white would be, once you get that thicker paint in there, then it blends and softens just as easily. Okay, so let's see here, a little bit of that color. Let's get this foothill down just slightly in the water. And one of the cool things, if you leave these little gaps here, little light areas, it just helps it look like different layers of mist, right like that. So, a couple of little light flicks right at the top edge of this foothill. Put approximately 378 little treetops. Any of these little spots in here, you can lift up and just see these little treetop indications. Really fun effect. And of course, really easy. Very little color in my brush. I grab the bottom edge of that foothill, press in and pull down. You can cut off your foothill. That gives you some color to make reflections, or just a light tap into your paint. very little color. Once I get some reflections out, I pull down, I blur sideways, and then with a touch of liquid white and a touch of titanium white, just kind of moosh together, maybe even a little off-white, it doesn't matter. The cool thing about these water lines, and I teach these many different ways, you know, sometimes we use pure liquid white, sometimes a mixture of titanium white and liquid white. You can also do it with just straight titanium white. It all depends on what look you're going for. Just trying to cut a little indication of a shoreline. Helps sell that effect. Now, I don't know why I said it like that. Now, look at this brand new fan brush. I don't know where that came from, but we're going to use it. I am taking pure midnight black. Pure midnight black. All the dark stuff. And let's make some happy trees. Holding my brush over and down, I tap, pink, 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 getting something started up there, and tapping, bending those bristles. I like starting in the middle and working my way out, just like Bob showed us here. Just shake these branches right out of the brush. How far down you go determines how close these trees are going to appear. Since they're super dark, I think they're going to be in the foreground. Take a moment, take a step back. Not quite dark enough there. I can add a little bit of color, make it a little darker, fill those spots in there. Maybe, oh maybe, this one's going to be even taller. See that little line? It's really just a guideline for it. If you just want to barely touch and pull down, that works. Or tap down. Either way is going to do the work, do the job. Couple of little starts to our tree. Load your brush often. We want plenty of color in the brush. It's the only way the color is really going to come off in the shape we like. It's not having enough paint is usually the problem people have. So load your brush often and keep moving. Bend those bristles. I'm not sure if you can see that, but those bristles are really folding. I'll roll you really back on the handle so you can see the effect here. Look at that. We got a couple of monster trees. Let's offset it with a little baby tree right here. Now this one might not be seen so well, but some of it will be. Well, one just kind of disappears off the side there. Maybe push up. If you push up, the bristles bend upwards and gives you kind of a growing thing. Something like that. Okay. Now maybe I'm going to have some bushes here. I could do this with a 1-inch brush. I'm just going to push a little bit of color up there, just some little foliage. That'll be just our background color for the bushes. So, believe it or not, I am going to clean that fan brush with a little bit of paint thinner. It's just going to take a little too much time right now to wipe it all out on a napkin, though you could do it. Let's come back here. Let's get a little bit of the liquid white and we'll thin down the titanium white. Remember our golden rule. A thin paint sticks to a thick paint. So, pure white. See that? You can kind of guess at your thinness by pushing forward. You can kind of see where you're at. And we'll come up here. Ooh, almost forgot. Using a clean knife, just the short edge here, let's make our little spike at the top of our trees. And maybe a couple little spikes here and there, little sticks and twigs. Just sort of pushing that paint here and there. It's winter, there's a lot of dead branches and such. Alright, highlight. Let's see how this goes. Light touch here. Let that paint fall off the brush. Little taps make little frowns. Start to get into these little patterns of pop, 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 pop. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 2, 3. Remember that thin paint should stick right on top of your shadow. Don't really want to keep hitting the same spot. I almost did there. When you run out of paint and you keep hitting the same spot, that's where the mud mixing happens. This little tree off to the side gets a little. Now, we're going to get a little nuts here. I took a little bit of the liquid white, holding my brush straight up and down relative to the paint. I pull. Try not to scoop. Pull with your arm. We want to see some nice texture here. And then turn that brush the other way. So that little rounded corner you make is up at the top, and we can make a nice little bush one at a time. Nice lacy effect. This takes a lot of paint, believe it or not. Look at that, it's all kind of flat on my palette. I'm just going to get it a little bit more up into a pile. And that doggone hair has been stuck in there the whole time. I'm going to ignore it. More paint. There's my lacy texture. Light touch. The more paint you have, the lighter you touch it to the canvas. It can get away from you very easily. There we go. Now, since I have this color here on my brush, let's just grab, press in, and pull. 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 Grabbing just a touch of that shadow color creates shadows in the snow. Now, the less you do here, the better it looks. See how the light of the sky here, it's a little brighter, and as I'm running out of paint, it automatically puts it into shadow behind the trees. That is such a amazing effect. Look at that, I'm just letting this snow grow, aren't I? The less you do here, the better it ends up being. So try not to overwork it. Maybe a couple little deets. There we go. Don't want to fill in all the dark, just in those little tiny spots that need it. And I think with that, we've got ourselves a nice, simple little scene. I love this, and it's based off of shades of gray, you know? Just had to do a nice little winter scene with 2 colors. I hope you guys enjoy this one. What color should I sign it with? I wonder. I think this is going to be my very first time ever. Out of 8 years, thousands of paintings, I don't think I've ever signed in black. So let's sign it right there. A little initials, paint thinner, and just midnight black. Little 2 and a 5. So, happy Thanksgiving all. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.